Communist China wants to become the #1 superpower, overtaking the United States. We know this. What can be done about it? Give us your sense of the policy and the response that should be happening toward Communist China.
So I know President Xi better than I know you, which is pretty good.
Really?
Okay, yeah, I really think so. So I know him very well. I've dealt with him many times. He came at Mar-a-Lago, as you know. He stayed.
Well, he's not a friend of the United States, I don't think.
No, he doesn't hate the United States, but he loves China. He wants to take everything away from the United States. He wants to not destroy the United States. He just wants everything. You got to understand, this is a man who's at the top of his game. He's dealing with an incompetent person in Joe Biden. He's never seen anything like it. And I was very tough on China. I tariffed them to a level 25 and 50% everything. We took in hundreds of billions of dollars. By the way,
yeah, I think that these other world leaders, you know, China, Putin, Kim Jong-un, none of these people respect Biden in any way, shape, or form. They know they can manipulate him, walk all over him, or just probably, in my opinion, pay him off. Trump has relationships with these people where they respect him. They may not even like him, honestly, but they respect him and his authority. They know that if they try to do something with him as president, there will be repercussions that they don't want. So, yeah.
The happiest person in the world was President Xi. And I got along with him great, but he is all for China. He doesn't care anything about our country. And I'll tell you this, he doesn't believe when he meets with Joe Biden, he thinks it's a joke. He can't believe, he sees this guy. If you would see President Xi, you can't duplicate him in Hollywood. There's nobody in Hollywood could play the role. These people, these leaders are at the top of their game. These are smart people, including Macron of France. I could go through the whole list of people, including Putin. Now, Putin's been wounded, probably. Let's see how it all turns out. You know, it's not over. I mean, one way or the other. But these people are sharp, tough, and generally vicious. They're vicious, and they're at the top of their game.
Yeah, that's, you know, kind of what I was just saying. These people are relentless, you know. They want control over a lot of things, and they think that, you know, it'll be like taking candy from a baby with Joe Biden in office. I think a lot of people I talk to that live outside the U.S. say everyone looks at us as the joke now, and I don't blame them. I mean, what are you supposed to think when you got biological men showing their fake titties on the White House lawn? Things like that happening, cocaine in the White House. I mean, this is turning into a joke, really.
We have a man that has no clue what's happening. It's the most dangerous time in the history of our country.
So what should be the response?
Ukraine would have never happened if I was president. None of this stuff would have happened. You wouldn't have inflation, for one thing. But going back to that, Ukraine would have never happened. Taiwan, which will at some point happen under this group, would never have happened. You never heard these things being talked about. I knew about them because I'd be with President Xi, I'd talk, and he likes Taiwan a lot. And Putin liked Ukraine a lot. It was the apple of his eye. But he never made a move with me because he knew he couldn't do it. Remember this also with Putin. You know, they like to say, oh, Trump was soft. I was tougher on Russia than anybody in history with the sanctions and everything else.
You said you could end the war in Ukraine in 24 hours.
Yes, I could.
How would you do that?
I know Zelensky very well.
Yeah, that's the thing. He's had relationships with these people, and I've heard a bunch of times people criticize him for that, for, you know, having meetings with Putin or Kim Jong-un. In my opinion, it's better for them to have that type of relationship. It's not like he was friends with them, like people are saying. You know, he put tariffs on them. He penalized them for things. It was a relationship of respect. They respected him. So, you know, whereas with Biden, they just don't care about him. They don't see him as alive, probably.
I felt he was very honorable because when they asked him about the perfect phone call that I made, he said it was indeed perfect. He said it was, he didn't even know what they were talking about. He could have grandstanded, oh, I felt threatened.
Well, that's not going to be enough for Putin to stop bombing Ukraine.
No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that I know Zelensky very well and I know Putin very well, even better. And I had a good relationship, very good with both of them. I would tell Zelensky, no more, you got to make a deal. I would tell Putin, if you don't make a deal, we're going to give them a lot. We're going to give them more than they ever got if we have to. I will have the deal done in one day. One day.
Now, China apparently is setting up this spy center in.
I do think Trump could end the war, honestly. I don't know if it'll be in 24 hours, but I do think he has the capability to do it. And I do not think Biden has the capability to do it. I think he has the capability to do it, but he won't. He's worried about his own image and he's worried about money for himself. But I do think, I think Trump would do it if he was president. I'm not sure if any other people in the race would be able to do it without starting a major war, like a world war.
Yeah,
Cuba, 100 miles away from Florida. No. So what is the answer? What should the response be to communist China?
They will be closed down within, I don't want to say 24 hours, but very quickly. They will.
You mean the spy center in Cuba?
They can't have, look, spy center is really bad. That's just the beginning. They're going to end up building military islands. You know, opposite Japan, they said, yes, we're building a residential housing development. It turned out to be one of the world's largest military bases. Japan should have watched that. And I predicted, I said, there's no way. You know why? I looked at a 15,000-foot runway they were building. A Gulfstream doesn't need a 15,000-foot runway, okay? I looked at this plan. I said, look at the runway. That's for military fighter jets. That's for military planes. That has nothing to do with private. They said they were building a residential development on this island. Turns out to be a military base. That's what they do. You know, one of the things in Afghanistan that's so sad, we should have never left Bagram. We should have kept it because Bagram is one of the largest military bases in the world. Of course, there's billions of dollars to build many years ago. And forget about Afghanistan. You don't want it for that. You want it because it's 1 hour away from where China is building their nuclear weapons, Bagram. And they left it.
See, it's things like that Trump thinks about. We need bases like that, especially if China's building nuclear weapons. Why wouldn't you want a military base only an hour away? Why aren't we hearing about this spy base being built in Cuba? That can't happen. We can't have that. And what is Biden doing to stop it? From right now, I haven't heard anything about it on his plans to stop that. I think Trump would not allow it.
At the dark of night.
Well, China has been much more aggressive in these last 2 years. We know that. Surveillance balloons, a spy balloon that traveled across the country.
You know, they weren't aggressive with me.
Police stations. That's what I want to ask you.
They weren't
Were you
aggressive.
aware of this kind of surveillance program underway of America from China in your administration? Were you aware?
They would have never done it.
Was there a surveillance balloon flying?
No, there wasn't.
Never?
Never. They would have never done it to me.
Well, this administration, the Biden administration said, oh, this started under Trump.
They did, and then they took it back. They said, oh.
That's because they're liars, and they like to divert attention away from them, from what they're doing.
You know, they said balloons over Trump. They never did. You know, these balloons are pretty big. You see those balloons. It was amazing that they sent this large balloon right over the middle of our country, by the way, over nuclear areas and other areas. And that you shoot that, if that happens, it would have never happened with me. It would have never happened with me. You should go back to another subject that you mentioned, Cuba. They're building military installations in Cuba, and the fake news media doesn't even talk about it. This is one of the most dangerous things, and nobody's even talking about it. China has to leave immediately, and they will. If I'm president, they will leave.
Let me get back to Taiwan, because we haven't touched on this. Should the U.S. help defend Taiwan if it means going to war with China?
Well, I don't want to say it because if I'm in the position of president, I don't want to say what I'm thinking. You know, if I answer that question, it'll put me in a very bad negotiating position. With that being said, Taiwan did take all of our chip business. You know, we used to make our own chips. Now they're made in Taiwan. 90% of the chips
Advanced
are made in Taiwan.
semiconductor chips, 90% are made in
they
Taiwan.
have-
If
they
China
make
goes in there,
everything.
they'll be able to turn the world on and off. Isn't that right?
If China takes Taiwan, they will turn the world off, potentially. I mean, potentially. But remember this. Taiwan took, smart, brilliant, they took our business away. We should have stopped them. We should have taxed them. We should have tariffed them.
I want to ask you about these legal issues. You mentioned the indictment. Your team is asking for a postponement of a trial.
Yeah.
When do you want this postponed until?
Well, look, this is all election interference. There's no case here. It comes under the Presidential Records Act. I'm allowed to do this. I'm allowed to have all the records I want. In fact, the New York Times, believe it or not, did an article. Please, 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 Mr. President, may we have the documents? It only applies to me. It doesn't apply to a vice president. It doesn't apply to anybody else. The Presidential Records Act, 1977-78, they did this for and these people, you know, Jack Smith, whatever his name is, whatever his real name is, but Jack Smith is a thug. He's been overturned in the Supreme Court of the United States for horrible things that he did, horrible, horrible things. And I have to ask this also. Biden has probably 30 or 40 times the number of documents and boxes that I had. You don't even hear anything about it. He doesn't want to give them.
Yeah, that's the crazy thing. I mean, I don't see how you can indict Trump without indicting anyone else. I mean, Hillary Clinton went above and beyond in order to hide her classified, documents. I've heard people on the left saying how the difference is Trump obstructed justice with the documents and Biden didn't, or you can't say Hillary didn't do that because she absolutely obstructed justice. But the thing is, when the documents Biden has, which he has a lot more, like Trump just said, than Trump does, those are from his vice presidency. That's not from his presidency now. It's from when he took them as vice president. He did not have the power to do that or the right to do that. So, if anything, I think that that's worse than the documents Trump had, whatever they were. I personally don't think any of them should be arrested because that's just bad for the country. It's setting a precedent, and we're going to see for years on end now of, political opponents using the DOJ against each other. And that's not going to be good for the elections. It's not going to be good for the country. They're just going to threaten to arrest each other? I mean, that's ridiculous.
He has boxes in Chinatown, and he's getting a lot of money at Chinatown. He's getting a lot of money from China. He's got boxes in Chinatown. Why are they in Chinatown? He's got boxes in his garage under his Corvette all over the floor of a garage with a garage door that you can cut open with a paper scissor. I have Mar-a-Lago, I have Secret Service protection, everything else. But even regardless of that, this is the Presidential Records Act. I'm allowed to do this. What they're doing is election interference. They want to try and damage my name so that I can't win the election. But so far, the people of our country see it. And my numbers have gone up as opposed to down because the people see it. It's a terrible thing. They've weaponized the Department of Justice. Do you know that they've
Do you have any indication the judge will grant this motion?
I don't know. I know it's a very highly respected judge, a very smart judge, and a very strong judge.
Oh, you appointed her.
I did, and I'm very proud to have appointed her. But she's very smart and very strong and loves our country. I mean, loves our country. We need judges that love our country, so they do the right thing. But I say this, the Presidential Record Act gives you all of the rights to do this. Biden wasn't president. He didn't have the rights. And he's under investigation, not with Jack Smith, but with a very nice person. But he's got boxes at the University of Pennsylvania, great school. They pay him, China pays him $1 million a year.
And that's the other thing with Biden's documents. He's just got them laying around everywhere. Trump didn't have these documents where they were accessible. But Biden probably doesn't even remember where he has all his documents because they're scattered out everywhere. And when you're receiving payments from other countries in the millions, it's not a good look.
A year. Did you know that $1 million a year? They pay $50 million or something to Penn.
Well, they also paid Anthony Blinken.
They pay all of his staff.
Yeah, so that was that video. I'm not really the biggest Trump supporter. I used to be. I think they're both bad in their own ways, but I think Joe Biden is far worse than Donald Trump could ever be. I think if we're talking what's best for the country, for our country to be strong and respected again, I would have to vote for Trump over Biden. I think that Trump needs to learn to be quiet once in a while. He just loves to hear himself talk all the time. And then the media, that's all the media covers. And all the corruption of the Biden administration gets swept under the rug because Trump keeps giving them things to talk about, keeps giving them things to distract the population with. So I think he needs to just be a little bit more quiet. I think he needs to focus more on talking about his policies and plans instead of insulting people and attacking people. But, I mean, that's also why a lot of people like him, I guess. I wish we had some better choices for president, but this is what we got. And, yeah, I don't think the country will last long with another Biden presidency. And I don't know if he'll last long enough to make it to see that next presidency.